All right, now let's add a texture to the background. So I'm going to select Add Texture Background 2A and the file Add Texture Background 2B. I'm holding down the Command key. And I just went over this, so I know you can do it either way. I'm just going to double click to do it the longer way, just to reinforce how you can click on the background layer, drag it over the tab, pull it back down in the image and let go. And then I can hit the move tool and move it around. And then to resize it to make sure it overlaps the image, or if it's too small or too big, just go up to Edit and Free Transform, which I like to do Command or Control T because it's faster. And I'm just going to drag it up and make sure it's bigger than the image. Hit Enter, hit Command 0 just to fill the screen. And what are we trying to do? Well, I want this on the background. Turn that off for now. Click on your background layer, come over here and choose the Quick Selection tool, which in your tool options bar at the top is going to give you Select Subject. Now you have two options now. You can do it on this device for quick results, or if you're already connected to the internet, you can use the cloud, which basically means you're using Adobe servers to help you get a more fine-tuned selection. And with today's internet speeds, why wouldn't you do it? Because it's pretty freaking quick. So if you just click that and let go, nothing's going to happen. You still got to click the select subject. That was fast. But looking at this, if I hold down the command and space bar to zoom in, I can see I don't have any marching ants inside this hair. So I will go ahead and click the select and mask button, which I like to do every single time I use select subject because it lets you quickly identify issues. If I hold down the space bar only, so I can move it around. Yep, right around the hair is where it messed up. This refined hair, I've learned, really tends to work best on like lots of flyaway little hairs. But this is already almost a helmet head kind of shape, and I know it's not going to do a great job from experience. So I'm just going to go ahead and use the Refine Edge brush tool that's already been pre-selected, and I'm just going to brush over that white area. Photoshop will figure out what's the white and what's the hair. See that? See how it's kind of refiguring each time? Anywhere I see where there's white background peeking through, I'm just trying to grab that. I'll pan around a little bit. Now I'm super zoomed in, right? Like insanely zoomed in, 600%. You really need to do this. This is called pixel peeping. You're just looking too close. 100% is usually plenty good. I'm gonna hit Command or Control 0 to fit in screen so I can get a quick overview. Overall, it looks really nice. I always like to keep my radius somewhere between 1 to 3 pixels. This is telling Photoshop, once you click Smart Radius, say, hey, make sure you look at the edges of my entire image and look 2 pixels on either side of my selection and make sure I've got everything selected correctly. Smoothing and feathering, that's really depending on what you're integrating it with, but I find I always like a smoothing of at least 1 or 2. Usually my feather is less than 1 pixel. So here I've got it at 0.6, and it looks like I've shifted the edge negative 43% from the last sticky setting. So I don't know that I want that. Let me go back to 0 and see what it looks like. Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to go, is keep this at 0 for now. Decontaminate colors, I don't see that being an issue since it was white, so I can go ahead and just declick that. Declick? Would that be unclick? Let's call it unclick. And then output to new layer with layer mask is how I like to do it. Click OK, because what it does is it basically turns off the layer I was on, protecting it. It copies it and adds the layer mask for me. What do we want? We want this layer behind the subject. I can either click on this layer and drag it below, or I could drag the other one on top. It doesn't matter. Now looking at this, I like the direction this is going, but I want to get 2 different looks out of it. So the first look is, I'm going to just duplicate the layer by hitting Command or Control J. I'm going to go up to a blend mode. I want to make it kind of darker. Let's try multiply. Yeah, I like where that's going. It's really poking him out a bit, right? What's color burn? All right, darker color. Yeah, I think multiply is really successful. It did sort of oversaturate it just a touch, so I would probably go ahead and add a hue saturation layer. And since my guy is above here, I can drag this all the way down to black and white, and it's not going to mess him up at all. Or I can make your eyes bleed by dragging it all the way to plus 100. Essentially, most things in Photoshop are just subtle for the best effect. So I'm just going to pull the saturation down just a touch. What is that? Minus 32. That's something like that looks really nice. Now, what I also want to do, just to give this a bit more punch, I'm going to use my favorite shortcut, Command Option Shift letter E, push it all to the top, and then what? Nothing. I'm done. I want to save this. So go up to File, Save As, because we're saving it as a PSD. We don't want to do Save as Copy, which we would do if we want to convert it quickly to a JPEG, but we don't, because I'm going to show you even quicker way to convert it to a JPEG later. Save As. And remember, it's automatically going back into the folder that you downloaded. It's going in as its name, but as a PSD file, which is perfect. And again, I want to embed the color profile of sRGB because it's going only to the web. And I'm gonna click save. Boom, look at that. Now, I also want a second version, and I want to show you how to use smart filters. So if you come back down to this background layer, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn off this top one that we saved, right? I'm gonna come back down to this background layer. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Command or Control E to squish them all together. I'm going to right click and choose Convert to Smart Object. I right clicked on the layer, and when I click Convert to Smart Object, do you see this little icon right here? That's letting me know that it is now a smart object layer. And anything I do to it, it's going to save it as a sub layer. So let's say I wanted to blur that background. I get on the filter, blur, and let's just use Gaussian blur. And I'm just going to drag this radius because maybe I want a creamy, smooth blue dark background. Now, what's the benefit of making this a smart object so that every filter I apply becomes a smart filter? Notice how you have your layer, then you have sub layers that are indented to the right, and then you have whatever filter you've applied lower than that. If I close this file right now, like save it and close it, I can come back into this 2 days later, 2 months later, 2 years later, doesn't matter. Whenever I decide, or maybe my client says, hey, I like that, but there's really too much blur there. You just have to reopen the file and click on the word Gaussian blur in this sublayer, double click on it, and it's going to reopen it immediately. So you can say, oh, there's too much blur. Let me pull that back a little bit and click OK. So it gives you editability on things where you typically wouldn't have that editability. Because if I had blurred this without making it a smart object so it would become a smart filter, and I had saved this and closed it, I couldn't get back. I couldn't fix this. I'd have to redo everything from scratch. So that's why smart objects and smart filters really give you a leg up. And we're going to spend almost an entire week on smart objects because they're so powerful with template use in production-oriented photography, graphic design, multimedia work. So save this out. File, save as, and for this one, since it's the second version, just go ahead and add a B or change the A to a B, like whatever it is that you want to do, just so that you have two PSD files that are very separate. And remember, they're always going to go to the bottom of your list of whatever files are already in the folder. All your PSDs are going to be at the bottom. So now I have two versions of this guy, which is exactly what I wanted. Hey, if you like this video, it helps. You can help me. Smack it, whack it, and crack-a-lack it. Take care. I like subscribers.
That's awesome! Whoa! Yes! Oh my god, I did! This is...
Hey, you stayed to the end. You know what that means? You're awesome. I'm talking about you. Now get out of here.